What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Talk 365 podcast. Joe Soccoa here with you. It's been a little bit since we had a podcast episode, but this is episode number 93, and this is the immediate reaction, of course, of the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks are Super Bowl champions with a 29-13 win over the New England Patriots. We also have another special part of this podcast as well, a segment I'm going to talk with ESPN's Linda Cohn, who I've known for quite a bit of time. She has spent a decorated career of more than 40 years in the business of sports broadcasting, especially being on SportsCenter. She'll join me later in the podcast as we talk about the New York Rangers and the state of them. But of course, this first segment we're going to do is the Super Bowl. And of course, I bring in one of the co-hosts of my live weekly show, Two Cups of Joe and Al. It's Albert Plantamura. Al, thanks for joining me here on the podcast as we recap the Super Bowl and the final game of the NFL season.
Yep. What's going on? I'm just eating.
He's just eating. That's good. That's good. But the Seahawks win 29-13 in really, Al, I mean, in my opinion, at least the start of this game was a friggin' snooze fest. I mean, we talked about it on our live weekly show that we kind of anticipated, these two teams and their defense, especially the Seahawks defense and how they were, and things were pretty much locked down. It was essentially 9-0 after the first half. So just take me through what you thought about how the game started in the first half.
Well, I think the whole game was pretty boring. The first half obviously was slow. Kind of like I think Joe was the one that said he predicted, that it would get off to a slow start. I thought it would initially start slow, but once you get the jitters out and you're no longer worried about, I can't lose the game on this one pass, and you realize you actually have to play a game to win it. I thought it would pick up a little bit, but it just didn't, man. That first half was a snoozer.
Yeah, it absolutely was. There wasn't much going on. Was it also, do you think it was like one of those things where, again, you had second-year quarterback in Drake May, Sam Darnold, who has been around the league for quite some time, but of course we know his history bouncing around, of course drafted by the New York Jets, didn't work out there, bounced around a couple of times, lands in Seattle, now brings them a Super Bowl victory. Couldn't have been maybe a little bit of the nerves from a lot of these guys and maybe even both teams just kind of getting a feel of what the game was going to be, because, if you're New England, coming into the game that this is one of the best defenses we're going to go against. So that's where you probably try to do a couple of things. And I mean, it clearly showed that New England had a real tough time out of the gate.
Definitely. You always see that at the start of Super Bowls because you got to remember they have 2 weeks to prepare. So you're watching a lot of tape and you're trying to overthink it, I think. And also, again, you're trying not to lose the game when it starts. You can't make a mistake. They always say, don't be the team that makes the mistake because that'll cost it. So I think everyone always starts the Super Bowl tight. They don't want to lose the game. They're like, let the other team lose the game before we try to win the game. And then, there's all the trying to outthink each other. So that's where it has. And then again, you're right with Drake May being a second-year quarterback. He's a kid, and he definitely is going to have more jitters than, most people. And, Darnold, too, can be a gunslinger and he did throw one or two passes in the first half that I was like, ooh, really made me clench. But, yeah, that's, definitely, you're onto something with that.
Yeah, I mean, and then obviously coming out of the half, it looked like New England had a better start to that second half. They got the ball in that second half. They tried to drive their way downfield, but then things really just didn't go their way. Let's just take a look at the overall and what it was. Again, both quarterbacks really nothing stood out. And of course, as we're recording this podcast, of course, the podcast is coming out. It's scheduled for the Monday, February 9th, of course. But as we're recording this, it's the immediate reaction of the Super Bowl. So I'm waiting to see who the MVP is. But taking a look at it, I don't think either the quarterback should have been the MVP.
No, I think it's going to be Walker.
Yeah, Sam Darnold,
Walker.
19 of 38, one touchdown pass, 202 passing yards. And then Drake May, 27 of 43, two touchdowns, two interceptions at crucial times in the game, passed for 295 yards.
And two lost fumbles.
And then, as you mentioned, Kenneth Walker III, 27 carries, 135 yards. He doesn't get a touchdown in that. I mean, it's unfortunate.
Got one taken away at the end there.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But if you really wanted to be honest, especially with the game that we saw, I feel like the punter for Seattle should have been the MVP. I mean, beautiful punts all night. And then, of course, you had Jason Mayers kicking field goals left and right. He had an unbelievable game, too. So a combination of their special teams of punter and field goal.
Did he kick 5?
I think he did.
Wait.
Kick 5.
They had 12, 19, and he must have hit 5. That's the most ever. Before today was 4.
Yeah.
So 5 is the record.
So I'm wondering if, that, even though I don't think that would be something that is, I don't think that would something that would happen, but that'll be interesting to see. But nonetheless, also now you look at the other thing is, as I mentioned, Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl champion. And I mean, Al, I know, again, you have been pro Sam Darnold. You liked him, when he was a Jet, so you were rooting for him in this game. But I mean, think about, of course, because you see it everywhere. You have the New York Jet fans who I'm sure are not too happy about this, but not so much against Sam Darnold, but probably that would just add more fuel to the fire to Woody Johnson.
I don't think Woody Johnson cares because he's a loser. He's a born loser and will always be a loser. And you know what? Even if Darnold is with the Jets, it's not like, oh, well, you guys would be in the Super Bowl. No, we'd screw up other things because we're a terrible franchise. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad for him. I really am glad for him. It shows the comeback spirit of sports. He was, one of the, failed quarterback. And he wasn't like failed out of the league, failed, but, he's going to be a backup. This guy he backs up in Carolina and he's good. He backs up the Super Bowl bound 49ers and was good. Goes to Minnesota, brings them to 14 wins. Goes to Seattle, brings them to 14 wins and wins the Super Bowl. It's a great story.
It absolutely is. And also there is history that was made in this game. Adam Schefter reporting it, that the Patriots have now lost their 6th Super Bowl, and that is more than any other NFL franchise. But this was also their 12th Super Bowl appearance. So, I mean, the fact that they have also been in the most Super Bowls, I mean, it kind of makes sense then if that they've also now lost half of the Super Bowls that they've been in. But, I mean, as a franchise, I don't think you'd want anything less. I mean, half,
I'll take it.
I'll take 50%.
How many Super Bowls have I seen my team lose?
Yeah.
None, because we've never been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Not since I'm alive.
Even though that the Patriots fall on the wrong side of history there, I'll still take, I'll still take the 50% of winning Super Bowls in the appearances that they were in. So, once again, congratulations for the Seahawks. And yeah, it didn't look good on New England's end, especially at the outstart of that game. Like I said, things got a little bit better in the second half. I think one of the more remarkable things were, Al, I think it took us well into the second quarter before we saw our first official flag of the game. So this was a pretty tightly defended game, but a relatively clean game.
Yep. First, it was a holding against New England. I think under a minute left. So Joe had said in the second half when there was a penalty, he was like, "Oh, is that the first?" I was like, "No, there was one in the first half."
So only 7 penalties combined, and combined 50 yards of penalties.
That might be the lowest ever, actually.
Yeah. Pretty insane. Possession was almost pretty even. Seattle had obviously possessed the ball a little bit more, just over 33 minutes, while New England had about 26, approaching 27 minutes. Both teams really didn't do anything on fourth downs. New England was 6 of 15 on third downs, while Seattle was 4 of 16. But the biggest thing in this game, 0 turnovers for Seattle, 3 for New England. And let's talk about that there for a second, Al. Those 3 turnovers, do you think that those were pivotal points in the game where maybe had New England not turned the ball over there, we're maybe seeing different results?
Yeah, 100%. So when you think of that interception, wait, there was 4 turnovers.
I'm looking at ESPN's statistics right now. They have it registered at 3. Unless there was a penalty and a turnover was taken back.
He threw 2 interceptions. No, 1 interception.
He threw 2 interceptions.
Then there was he fumbled the ball twice. There was 4 turnovers.
Well, they have it as 3 on here, so
I don't know how. I'm just talking about the interception that came in the second half. They were down, I don't know, 29. No, I don't think it was 20. It was 22 at the time. I think 22 was 7, and then they're driving. So if you score there, you're down a score. It's a new game, you know, and they're driving. They had 1 or 2 first downs, and then he just kind of threw it up, and Seattle intercepted it. That right there, ended the game, I think. And then when you go back to the fumble touchdown, they were at 22 at the time.
Yeah.
Again, that score, and that wasn't just a turnover, but a turnover to a score. Where you could score and bring it to a 1-score game, you turn it over and they score on the same play, and it becomes a 3-score game, and the game is over.
Yeah. Here's my question, because again, usually we've kind of seen, a lot of mistakes in previous Super Bowls that then leads to the big discussions afterwards, like on all the radio shows and the podcasts, much to like what we're doing here. And usually you're pinpointing and trying to figure out who's to blame or whatnot. But do you really think that, obviously just one team played way better, looked a little bit more prepared, but also they have the number 1 defense in the league. But, if you're looking on it from the outside, yeah, it stinks to be a New England fan and losing the game, but is there anything that, you could sit here and say, this just was terrible, like one coach over the other? I just think this was so much of a boring game that there weren't any glaring mistakes that you could pinpoint and say, oh my God, how could he do that? That's a fireable offense.
First of all, what was the score that I said?
You were pretty low.
I said 27-17,
yeah,
up to 30-13. Oh, it just happened to finish 29-13. It wasn't like a mistake of this or that. It would have took
Kenneth Walker the third, by the way.
It would have took New England playing a great game, which they didn't, and Seattle playing a terrible game, which they didn't, for them to win. You know why? Because Seattle was a much better team. And I'm not going to blame, it's because of this guy or because of that guy. They're a better team, New England kind of had everything fall their way to get there. I don't think they were the best team in the AFC, not by far, but they played the best at the right time. They had a great schedule. They had a fortunate schedule for the season. They had a fortunate path in the playoffs. And, if you're New England, this season was a raving success, and you have a lot to build on going forward. And there's nobody there should be hanging their head, and not the fans, not the team, not the franchise. And going forward, I
I
mean,
don't think New
it's
England's going
great,
anywhere. I don't think New England's going anywhere. I think that they have probably reclaimed their stake back on top like they were in the
100%
Brady
they have.
years because they
100%.
have a great coach in place and they have a very young quarterback that looks really good. I mean, listen, he gained a ton of experience. This is just year 2 for Drake May, and the fact that he was able to take his team to the Super Bowl and he got a piece of that experience now on a kid like that, this is one of those things where, like you said, you don't hang your head at all, and you look at this as, okay, I experienced the Super Bowl. I basically got chewed up. I got spit out. Now I'm going to put that chip on my shoulder because now I know what it feels like to be here, and I want to win it.
Yeah. The if I'm a New England fan, a player, anybody on that, I mean, they don't need me to tell you, like, you got to feel good. You got to feel good about everything, the coach, the offense, the defense. And they said a stat today, which I didn't know. New England had more new players on a Super Bowl team than any team in history.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, they really did everything right.
And even catching some of the just like the replays that they showed you on TV, like highlight packages, you could kind of see Matt Vrabel basically sitting there saying like, all right, let's go, shake it off, let's go into the new one. So I wouldn't doubt that he thinks that his team played well. It just was a frustrating game, and usually when that frustration builds, that's the type of result that you get.
Yeah.
So all right, Al. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this special edition of the podcast. I'm talking about the Super Bowl, of course. We'll catch you on your regular show, 2 Cups of Joe and Al, on Wednesday night to recap everything. And then, of course, we look ahead towards the offseason and the draft because we're sure the Jets and the Giants are going to be right there. We'll see what's up next for them.
Yep. I'll talk to you later.
All right. All right, as we shift focus here on the podcast to another segment, I wanted to use this time to speak about the New York Rangers because I needed a little bit of time to digest it and kind of really take it all in because it's been 8 years between 2 letters to the fans basically saying, we stink, we have to change what's going on in order for us to be competitive again. And if I know that there's one person in the sports industry that I could call on to give a brutally honest opinion and basically speak for myself and many Ranger fans that have the same mindset, there's no one better than ESPN's own Linda Cohn. Linda, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me here on the podcast. And it's been a minute since we both have spoken to each other, seen each other, and it was better times when the last time we seen each other, at least in Rangerland. But I'm just trying to make an honest assessment of this entire situation.
Yeah, Joe, great to be with you, of course. And I feel even when time goes by, we still have that connection, and we will always have the connection over our, love and admiration for the New York Rangers since we were little and then grew up to be grown-ups. And some things never leave your blood, and that's how we are. So, when yes, I do speak for most Ranger fans because, I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, meaning I don't work for the New York Rangers. So I'm going to tell you like it is. This is all on Chris Drury. Yep. He is one of the worst GMs in the history of sports. He was not prepared for this job. He was not ready for this job. And it's just been one mistake after another when we just focus in on the Artemi Panarin. Artemi Panarin, again, do we have to remind people that he was a leading scorer of the team every single season he was a New York Ranger, number one. So there was no issues with production. Yes, he was getting older, 34 years old, okay. He watched in the offseason all of these superstars, whether it's Kaprizov, McDavid, all these guys, okay, franchise players for the respective teams, getting contract extensions. Hey, Chris Drury, not moving at all, not calling up Panarin's camp and saying, yeah, let's try to work on something here. There was nothing. There was no discussions. And it was not like Panarin was looking for big-time Connor McDavid money or Kirill Kaprizov money. It wasn't that way at all. He loved being a Ranger. He wanted to stay being a Ranger. So that's the foundation we have to remember is always there. But then, of course, as the season went on, again, Panarin leading the team in scoring, always putting forth the effort and the production. Still nothing, not a budge. And then, of course, when things went sour, that's when Artemi Panarin realized, hey, it's not happening. We better look elsewhere. We have a no move, but I'm going to, I'm going to now look into it. I'm going to talk to, my teammate Gavrikov because I've heard good things about the Kings and living in Los Angeles. And that is how he went in that direction. It was obviously not about the money because $11 million a year is peanuts. Mm-hmm. Ranger fans were like, what? Yep. Why couldn't we sign him for $11 million a year? Yep. Blah, blah, blah. So he felt he was not wanted. And when you are a professional, and you're especially a professional athlete who have given all you have had and then some, and you realize the team doesn't care about you and doesn't want you, you're out. I'm done. I'm out of here. And you know what? I don't care what you get back. I want to go to the Kings. And there were other teams reports, and I know a source of mine says that is absolutely true. Multiple teams were willing to pay Artemi Panarin so much more money. And the Rangers probably would have had a better deal with guys coming back. But Panarin wanted Los Angeles, so he didn't care about the money, and he certainly didn't care what Chris Drury got back in return.
You hit it right on the head in the beginning part of that. I guess we'll call that your opening monologue to this, which was fantastic because, like I said, you speak for me and most of the Ranger fans out there, and that was spot on because it's exactly how I feel. It starts with and ends with Chris Drury, and it's mind-boggling that a month ago, I looked forward to the fact that James Dolan was going to march into Craig Carton's show when he came back to WFAN, and I wanted to listen to James Dolan, and I wanted to hear him. I was hoping, because I know Carton is not a hockey guy, but C-Mac, who is now his co-host on that show, is. And I wanted to know, how can you justify, because, of course, as we all know, James Dolan owns both the Knicks and the Rangers. How are you going to justify, and they spoke about the firing of Tom Thibodeau, how are you going to justify you're firing this guy when this team, the Knicks team, was maybe on the precipice with this guy, and he really moved this team in the right direction, but you allow Chris Drury to go through at least 4 coaches in the last 6 years? It's just mind-boggling to even think of that, and I'm just baffled by it. Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad you brought up the coaches and how many there have been. He wanted his buddy Mike Sullivan in for the longest time. He wanted him in years before. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's number one. And that was a big mistake. And, it's basically, to me, listen, with all due respect to myself, and I know about his Stanley Cups with Sidney Crosby, because let's remember, he won Stanley Cups with Sidney Crosby. It's like Belichick with Tom Brady, okay?
Yep.
Without that person, there would be no championships. And especially in the case of Belichick, losing coaching record as a head coach without his franchise player in Tom Brady. But let's get back to it. So, I didn't think you should have fired Gerard Gallant, to be honest with you. It wasn't like there was an uprising in the locker room. We got to get this guy out. He found success in a very short amount of time. But it started there. And so Laviolette misses the playoffs one year. He's got to go. I can finally get my guy in. So it's been bad decision after bad decision. The other problem with this organization, I don't know if it should fall on this, but this is under Drury's watch. This is general managers in charge of hiring people that are in charge of player development.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Am I right? The Rangers cannot develop their draft picks.
Well,
so we don't even know. Yeah. So this is my other saga. It's not only the coaching decisions and the decisions with certain players, but the way this organization develops them has been bad for years.
Well, do you want to know who the players are? I mean, I'm sure you know who the players are that are in charge of the Rangers player development. Jed Ortmeyer is the director. His assistant is Tanner Glass. And, Mark Stahl is on that coaching staff as well. That's who the Rangers player development is. And then I know Drury had his press conference the other night, and it was asked about, like, is this one of those times where you really have to take a deep dive into your player development and why all of these draft picks over the last several years in between these two letters have never panned out, have literally looked terrible? Like, I don't understand it. And listen, we go even before that. I look at it as Drury's demise, and I think, as you said, even coming into this, I personally don't think he should have been the general manager. I think JD and Jeff Gorton might have been fired a little prematurely. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But then he made a bad name for himself and put a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouth with the whole Barclay Goodrow situation.
Yes.
Where he basically said, hey, if you don't waive your no movement clause that, I inherited over here, granted, whatever, but I'm going to then put you on waivers and San Jose is going to probably go and claim you. And you're going to sit there and tell me who I know he's good friends with San Jose general manager Mike Greer probably had some sort of arrangement in that sense. I mean,
I was going to say, Joe, I'll give you another one. He totally butchered the whole Jacob Trouba situation.
Yep.
How do you do that to your captain? Who, by the way, the players, again, not an uprising. They love Jacob Trouba.
Yep.
They really loved him as their captain, as their teammate. And he embarrassed Jacob Trouba the way he handled that situation. And finally, listen, I'm out here on the West Coast, and I've heard multiple interviews, and I've seen the Ducks play, and we haven't even gotten to Chris Kreider. But my point is, Jacob Trouba, he can't say enough how happy he is.
Yep.
So relaxed, so stress-free, playing. Let's put it this way, playing with Anaheim, but not being in New York with the New York Rangers organization. And, I heard a rumor that when the Rangers were in town recently, a few weeks ago, that during the morning skate, that the rumor was Jacob Trouba was playing circus music in their dressing room as the Rangers could definitely hear it loud and clear.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, of course, referring to the organization, not necessarily the players, but the organization.
No, I don't think it's the players by any means. I think it was the fact that the way Drury handled the Goodrow situation put a sour taste, and obviously that locker room seemed pretty tight-knit and a special group that I think, they went on that run to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think, though, that they could have built on that. But it all starts with him, and again, it is baffling. The other issue I have here, while I have you for a few more minutes, the other issue I have here is you talk about Jacob Trouba and how he was beloved by the players, and that's the kind of guy you want in a locker room, and Drury basically threw him out and tossed him aside. And then you bring in a guy like JT Miller, who, again, all due respect to him, he's a hardworking player, but he has an attitude problem. He is a bit of a prima donna. I remember he had an issue in Vancouver, obviously.
Yeah.
He also had, I believe wasn't there a few years back too, he might have taken a personal leave of absence for an extended period of time. Okay.
I do remember that.
So, and now he comes out, and the question to you is going into the Olympic break is, what's the message for the Rangers? I don't know. You're the captain of the team. You're supposed to have that answer. You're supposed to know how you're going to help turn around. And I know Elliot Friedman up in his report said he just believes that Sullivan and JT, although both frustrated, doesn't believe they're on the same page with the message in that locker room.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed in the leadership or lack thereof of JT Miller. I was a bit stunned when he was named captain. I was like, oh, okay, I guess they know something I don't know, and you just had a trust going in that Mike Sullivan and everybody in the group, had more intel than we did as fans, as outsiders. But I thought it was going to be like a Vinny Trocheck or even a Mika Zibanejad, just guys that, were there, been there, done that. And JT was, again, I know he was a Ranger once upon a time, but basically coming in from the outside. I don't know that response. It was nothing. It was not captain like when he said, "Oh, I don't know. I guess we have to get a better mindset." Really, So I mean, like they say, you read the comments, and it's just what I was thinking too. Of like, Mark Messier would never say something like that. For goodness sake, Ryan Callahan would never say something like that. It's type of thing. I mean, it's incredible. Less is more. I just don't understand it. And it's, the Mike Sullivan, it's rubbing me. Everyone's like want to give him a pass. I don't know. I mean,
I don't think this was the right group. I don't think this was the right group for him to come in and try to fix at all.
Yeah, he thought, and Drury thought, well, they're buddies, but Drury thought, God, this team is so close. They, like you said, they went to the Eastern Conference Final a couple of years back, whatever. He could bring them to the next level because there are stars here and all this stuff. That was the plan. That's what they thought. But, when you do the thing like you did in the offseason with Panarin, when you made it clear you don't want him, I like him, I don't think he's important. When you get rid of Chris Kreider, you say he's not important, one of the greatest Rangers of all time. And by the way, Panarin is one of the greatest free agent signings of all time in the New York Rangers history. When you treat players like this, and here's another thing, and I said this on Twitter, at the time, I was not a fan the way Sullivan bench Mika Zibanejad as a healthy scratch because he was late to get to the garden or whatever with the traffic and all this stuff. Stuff happens. Yep. You find the guy. I don't think anyone in that locker room would have said a peep if he was just fined and not benched. But it became more of an issue when he benched Mika Zibanejad. Again, it was the first meeting against Kreider and the Ducks, his buddy. It was just so wrong, and it left a bad taste in my mouth about Mike Sullivan, and that's when it went downhill for me.
It is crazy, and again, there's also a team, only 6 home wins all year. So to kind of wrap this segment up, I guess, where to next? Because now you hear the rumors throughout this break now that Vincent Trocheck might be next because he might be the most attractive piece that can maybe
want him?
and that can maybe get you a real much better return and probably lick your wounds from the horrific return that you got for Panarin, which, by the way, my theory was, and I said this the other day, just quickly back to that before I ask you what they should get. My theory with it is Panarin, I think also because players love him in that locker room. I feel like he looked at that situation from everything that transpired in that locker room and how Drury treated his players, figured, you know what? Let me go to a place that I maybe want to go to. I'm going to leave money on the table, but as you said before, I don't care what the return is you get back. This is where I want to go. So I think it was more of like a F you. This is the only place I want to go, and you might not get a good return.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, that's why I mentioned that earlier. I mean, he didn't care. Where do they go now? And you mentioned Trocheck, and what contending team wouldn't want a guy like that?
I mean,
it was amazing. Yeah, they didn't want Panarin. How are they going to want? They're going to trade him, and he's not a youngster either. So I'm sure he's a goner. After watching what happened against, not that I expected anything because they're just a step above the Hartford Wolfpack right now. Yeah. I mean, barely. Jonathan Quick was the only one that has given any effort in every. And so he might, if I'm a team and I wanted to bolster my goalie depth, why not bring Quick in? I mean, I love the guy, but, why are you going to kill the guy? You don't want the guy, going out this way.
Yeah. I'd have to think he's probably going to retire after this year. I think this is probably also taking a mental toll on him. He's going to be 40. I think he's 40, right? 41. I know he wanted to finish out his career as a Ranger, but I think this might be it for him.
He didn't know about this. He didn't sign up for this,
No way.
and this time. And how about if you're Igor Shesterkin? What the heck are you rushing back for?
I know. I wouldn't.
Adam Fox, what the heck are you rushing back for? But especially Shesterkin. Because we see how the goalies can sue for non-support all season long.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I really feel for Shesterkin because Ranger fans should not expect anything different when they, when they come back end of February and play the rest of their schedule. Because I feel it's gonna look exactly like what we've been seeing. Until they figure it out, because they're going to be sellers. They're not going to be buyers, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what they say about, we're retooling, not rebuilding. Yeah. If something's going to happen, it's not going to be during this season. That's what I believe.
Well, as always, like I said, if I ever need somebody to be brutally honest and speak for all of us, I'm going to call you. Just like I texted you the other day when the trade happened, and I was just like, disgusting, horrific. But guess what? I really thought from that moment it was the FU to Chris Drury from Artemi Panarin. Greatest Ranger, as you mentioned. But, Linda, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me as we kind of go through Ranger rehab together.
I like that, Ranger rehab.
Yeah.
Joe, anytime. Anytime. Right. It helps me, too. Helps me. It's therapeutic.
It does. It absolutely does. And, of course, that was the great Linda Cohn. Thank you so much to her for joining us. And, of course, special shout out and thanks to Albert Plantamura for joining us as well. And it has been a pretty fun one here on this newest episode of the Sports Talk 365 podcast. Of course, folks, we're going to try to bring you more content as well. So I am definitely back on the pony here, if you would, for the Sports Talk 365 podcast, closing in on episode 100. So, I got to go big with that too. So it is going to be pretty special. Once again, congratulations are in order for the Seattle Seahawks as they defeat the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 60 by a score of 29-13 and capture the Vincent Lombardi Trophy. Once again, I want to thank my two guests on the podcast, Albert Plantamura to talk football and Linda Cohn of Sports Center. So again, I want to thank them for joining us, and I want to thank you for listening to the Sports Talk 365 podcast. You can catch this podcast on all your podcasting platforms. We'll see you next time.